These allegations have been out in the ether for a very long time. The internet existed. I didn't go into my relationship with him blind. I am neither naive nor am I complicit. I talked to him about it. I asked him questions about it. I heard his side of the story, which no one has ever heard, which is the truth.
After the court gave its final decision and the case reached a shocking turning point, all attention quickly moved to Melissa Gilbert. For a long time, she stood by her husband and defended him against every claim and public attack. She continued to support him even when criticism grew stronger. But now, everything seems to have changed. Reports say Melissa Gilbert has finally spoken out in a very different way, one that no one expected. As more details begin to come out, the situation is becoming more tense and unclear. What really caused this sudden change in her story? Join us in this video as we reveal the details. Melissa Gilbert exposes her husband after his conviction. Melissa Gilbert spoke in a public interview with ABC News, and she explained that her decision to finally speak did not come quickly or easily. She made it clear that for some time, she and her family had been hearing and reading things that she believed were not true, and this created a lot of stress and emotional pressure for them. She said that the situation had been very difficult to handle, and because of that, she was not ready to speak earlier. According to her, it took time for her to feel strong enough to face the public and respond. She described the period leading up to the interview as deeply painful, and she suggested that the delay in speaking was because she needed time to process everything that had happened. When she finally chose to speak, she said it was because she believed the moment was right and that she was finally able to express herself clearly after going through such a heavy emotional experience. Timothy Busfield is currently facing serious legal charges after a grand jury in Albuquerque formally indicted him. The charges include 4 counts of criminal sexual contact with a minor, and this has now become a legal matter that will be decided in court. Busfield has responded to these charges by pleading not guilty, making it clear that he denies all accusations brought against him. The legal process is still ongoing, and a trial has been scheduled for the coming year. This means that no final judgment has been made yet, and the court will be responsible for examining all the evidence, listening to both sides, and deciding the outcome based on the law. For now, the case remains active, and everything is still in progress as both the defense and the prosecution prepare for what will happen next in court. In her statements, Gilbert strongly defended her husband and made her position very clear. She explained that she was not unaware of past claims that had been mentioned over the years. Instead, she said she had taken the time to speak with him about those issues and had asked him direct questions. She stated that she listened carefully to his explanations and believed what he told her. Her support for him was presented as firm and steady, and she made it clear that she trusts him completely. She emphasized that her belief in him is based on her personal experience with him over time. She also stated in very strong terms that if she ever believed he had done something harmful to a child, she would not stand by him. This statement showed how serious she considers the matter, while also making it clear that she does not believe the accusations are true. Gilbert also spoke about how much this situation has affected their lives on a personal level. She described the experience as one of the most painful and stressful periods they have ever gone through. According to her, the situation has changed many things in their lives, including their plans, their goals, and the future they once expected. She explained that many of their ideas and projects have been put on hold or completely stopped because of what is happening. She also talked about the emotional toll it has taken, saying that they are grieving the life they once had before all of this began. In addition to that, she raised concerns about the long-term effects on Busfield's reputation. She suggested that even if he is later cleared of all charges, people may still remember the accusations, and this could continue to affect how he is seen by others. At this time, the case has not yet been resolved, and everything is still moving through the legal system. There has been no final decision, and the outcome will depend on what happens during the trial. The court will review all the details, listen to the arguments from both sides, and then reach a conclusion based on the facts and the law. Until that happens, the situation remains uncertain, and both sides must wait for the legal process to run its full course. The case is still active, and more updates are expected as it continues toward trial, where a final decision will eventually be made. Before all the fame, the struggles, and the life changes that shaped who she became, how did Melissa Gilbert's story really begin? And what kind of early life set the stage for everything that followed? Let's find out. Early life, fame, and personal struggles. Melissa Gilbert was born on May 8, 1964, and right from the very beginning, her life did not follow a simple or easy path. Her birth parents felt they were not ready to take care of a child, so just after she was born, she was placed for adoption. This was a very important moment in her life, even though she was too young to understand it at the time. She was adopted almost immediately by actor and comedian Paul Gilbert and his wife Barbara Crane, who was also involved in the entertainment world. They became her new family, and she grew up knowing them as her parents. As she grew older, there were many things she believed about her family that later turned out to be different from what she had been told. One of the most painful moments in her life came when she learned the truth about her adoptive father's death. For many years, she believed he had died from a stroke, but later she found out that he had actually died by self-harm after dealing with long-term pain. This truth hit her very hard. It caused deep emotional pain, and she struggled for months. She could not sleep well, she lost her appetite, and she felt a strong sense of sadness and confusion. It was a time in her life that left a lasting mark on her. As a child, she began working in television. At first, she appeared in commercials, doing small roles that slowly helped her gain experience. Then came the moment that changed everything for her. She was chosen to play Laura Ingalls Wilder in the popular television series Little House on the Prairie. This role was very important, and she was selected after competing with more than 500 other young girls. That alone shows how special the opportunity was. However, her life as a child actor was very different from that of other children her age. While many kids were going to school, playing outside, and enjoying simple childhood moments, she was spending long hours on set. Day after day, she worked hard, learning lines, acting in scenes, and living in a world that was very different from real life. Even though she has said that the experience was fun, it still meant she missed out on a normal childhood. As the show continued, her fame grew. People began to recognize her everywhere. She became a familiar face in many homes, and her role on the show made her very popular. But fame at such a young age also comes with pressure. It is not always easy to grow up in front of cameras, where many people are watching and judging. After the show ended, she did not stop working. She continued to act in different roles, trying new things, and staying active in the entertainment industry. She also received recognition for her work, including a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. This was a big achievement and showed how much she had contributed to television over the years. But while her career looked successful on the outside, her personal life was not always easy. She went through several marriages, and each one came with its own problems. There were moments of heartbreak, trust issues, and emotional struggles. Some of her relationships ended in painful ways, and these experiences added to the challenges she was already facing. She also dealt with financial problems at one point, including issues with taxes. This brought more stress into her life. On top of that, she struggled with addiction, which made things even more difficult. These were not small problems. They affected her deeply and made certain periods of her life very hard to manage. Even with all these challenges, she did not give up. She kept moving forward, step by step. Her story shows that even when life becomes very difficult, it is still possible to keep going. She faced many ups and downs, but she continued to find ways to rebuild her life and keep working towards something better. After everything she went through in her early life, from fame at a young age to personal struggles behind the scenes, one question arose. How did Melissa Gilbert begin to rebuild her life, find stability in her relationships, and move toward a more peaceful and fulfilling future? Let's delve deeper. Relationships, growth, and life changes. As time went on, Melissa Gilbert began to move into a new phase of her life, one that involved deeper reflection and change. Her relationships played a big part in this journey. She had been engaged to Rob Lowe at one point, but their relationship did not last. It ended after facing several personal challenges, including issues that were difficult for both of them to handle at the time. She later got married to Bo Brinkman, but that marriage also came with problems and eventually ended. After that, she married Bruce Boxleitner, and while that relationship lasted longer, it too came to an end. These experiences were not easy. Each one brought emotional pain and lessons that stayed with her. Then, her life took a different turn when she met Timothy Busfield. Their meeting was simple, but it became something meaningful. They connected in a way that felt real and steady. After spending time together, they decided to get married in 2013. This relationship brought a sense of balance and support that she had been looking for. With Busfield, she began to see life differently. She moved away from the fast and busy life of Hollywood and chose something quieter. They settled in a more peaceful environment, away from the noise and pressure of the entertainment industry. This change was not just about location, it was also about how she wanted to live her life. She started to focus on living in a more natural and simple way. Instead of trying to meet the expectations of Hollywood, especially when it came to appearance and aging, she decided to be comfortable with herself. She stopped trying to look a certain way for others and began to accept herself as she was. This was a big change, and it helped her feel more at peace. Busfield supported her in these choices. He encouraged her to do what made her happy, not what others expected. Together, they worked on building a life that felt calm and meaningful. They even took on the challenge of fixing up a home that needed a lot of work. It was not easy, but it gave them a shared goal and something positive to focus on. Looking back at her time on Little House on the Prairie, she also reflected on her on-screen relationship with Dean Butler. He played her husband on the show, but there was a noticeable age difference between them at the time. He was much older, and this created some discomfort, especially during scenes that involved romance. One moment that stood out was their on-screen kiss, which drew attention because of their ages. Behind the scenes, this situation was not always easy for her. She later shared that it felt unusual and, at times, uncomfortable. It also showed how different things were in the industry back then compared to now. She also spoke about a difficult experience during an audition with Oliver Stone. She said that during the audition, she felt humiliated and upset. The situation made her feel small, and she left feeling emotional and shaken. This moment stayed with her and showed another side of the challenges actors can face, especially when dealing with people in positions of power. Over time, all these experiences shaped who she became. Her life has been full of change, from early fame to personal struggles, from difficult relationships to finding peace in a simpler life. Step by step, she moved through each stage, learning and growing along the way. So what exactly are the charges against Timothy Busfield, and how did this legal situation first begin to unfold? Let's take a closer look. The charges, denials, and early case developments. Timothy Busfield is currently involved in a very serious legal case in New Mexico. He has been formally indicted on 4 counts of criminal sexual contact with a minor. This means a grand jury looked at the early evidence and decided there was enough reason for the case to move forward into a full trial process. At this stage, he has not been found guilty of anything. The case is still ongoing, and everything will be decided later in court, after both sides present their evidence and arguments. The allegations are linked to claims involving 2 young boys who were about 7 to 8 years old at the time. These children were connected to a television production where Busfield worked as a director on the series The Cleaning Lady. The claim suggests that during his time on set, there was inappropriate physical contact between him and the minors. The exact details are being disputed, and the court will be responsible for deciding what is true based on the full evidence. Busfield has strongly denied all of the allegations. He has pleaded not guilty and has made it clear through his legal team that he believes the accusations are false. From his point of view, he did not commit any wrongdoing, and he expects to be cleared when the case is finished. Because the case is still active, both the prosecution and defense are preparing for trial, gathering statements, reviewing reports, and building their arguments. At this early stage, there has already been a lot of public attention around the case. This is mainly because of the seriousness of the charges and because Busfield is a well-known figure. When a public figure is involved in a legal case like this, it often becomes widely discussed, even before the court reaches any final decision. However, legally speaking, public discussion does not decide guilt or innocence. Only the court can do that after a full trial. The prosecution's position, based on what has been shared, is that the allegations involve unlawful and intentional physical contact with minors. They believe there is enough evidence to move forward with the case, and that testimony and investigation results support the charges. The defense, however, disagrees completely and says that no criminal act took place at all. They argue that the situation has been misunderstood or misrepresented and that Busfield should not be seen as guilty. One important point in the early part of the case is that everything is still being examined. Nothing has been proven in court yet. There is no final ruling, no verdict, and no sentencing. The entire process is still in progress, and both sides are expected to present more detailed arguments when the trial begins. Because of this, the case is still in a very sensitive stage. Statements, interviews, and reports are all being carefully considered. The court will eventually decide which evidence is reliable and which is not. Until that time, the legal status remains unchanged. Busfield is accused, he denies the charges, and the matter is awaiting trial. With the charges now clearly laid out and the case moving forward in court, a question keeps echoing. How does the defense respond to these serious accusations against Timothy Busfield, and what arguments and evidence are they using to challenge the claims? Let's learn more. Defense claims, evidence disputes, and legal risks. As the case continues, the defense team for Timothy Busfield has built a strong counter-narrative. They argue that the accusations are not accurate and that the story being presented by the prosecution is incomplete or misleading. According to the defense, the claims against him did not arise in a simple or direct way, but instead developed over time under complicated circumstances. One of the key parts of the defense argument is that there are inconsistencies in how the allegations appeared. According to the report, it is explained that one of the child witnesses initially denied that anything inappropriate happened during early questioning. However, later on, after additional interviews and involvement from professionals, the child later made claims of inappropriate contact. The defense uses this change in account to question the reliability of the accusation. There are also reports mentioned in the case involving emotional and psychological distress, including claims that the child experienced anxiety and nightmares. These reports were taken into account during the investigation process. Authorities later reviewed multiple statements and gathered more information, which eventually led to formal charges being filed. At the same time, the defense argues that these emotional reports do not directly prove that any criminal act occurred. The defense has also raised concerns about the background of the children's parents. They claim that the parents have a history of legal and financial problems. According to the defense, this background could affect how the accusations developed. They suggest that there may have been outside motivations involved, including disputes related to the children's acting roles in the production. The defense argues that these issues may have influenced the decision to make allegations. In addition, the defense has pointed to several pieces of information they believe support Busfield's innocence. This includes claims that he passed a polygraph test, meaning he answered questions about the allegations while connected to a lie detection device and was said to show no deception. They also reference a psychological evaluation that reportedly found no signs of inappropriate sexual interest toward minors. Furthermore, they mention an internal investigation connected to the production, which reportedly found no evidence of misconduct on set. Even with all these claims, the prosecution still maintains that the case is serious and should be decided in court. They believe the testimony and investigation results support the charges. One major issue that will likely affect the trial is whether past unrelated allegations can be brought into court. This decision will be made by the judge and could strongly influence how the case is presented. Another important point is the risk of speaking publicly during an active case. Legal experts explain that anything said outside the courtroom can potentially be used later in court. This includes interviews, public statements, or comments made by people close to the accused. Because of this, public defense statements can sometimes become part of the legal record, depending on how relevant they are to the case. Overall, the situation remains active and unresolved. Both sides are preparing for trial, and the final outcome will depend on how the judge and jury interpret the evidence. Until then, everything remains in dispute, and no conclusion has been reached about guilt or innocence. What did the court decide after reviewing whether the accused should remain in custody or be released before trial? Keep watching for more details. Court review of detention request and initial findings. The court carried out a detailed review to decide whether the accused should remain in jail or be released while waiting for trial. At the start of this review, the court noted that there had not been any earlier decision that required the accused to stay in detention before trial. Because of this, the judge looked at the matter fresh, carefully reviewing all arguments and information presented. After going through the full set of submissions, the court reached an important conclusion. The judge found that the state did not provide strong enough proof. The law required clear and convincing evidence that no possible set of release conditions could keep the community safe. The court determined that this high standard was not met. The judge explained that it had not been clearly shown that no conditions could reasonably protect younger people or the public. Because of this, the court denied the request to keep the accused in jail while the case continues. This meant the accused would be released, but not without rules and supervision. The court then considered the arguments made by the state. The state raised concerns that the alleged conduct was not a single isolated issue. Instead, it suggested that the behavior described may form part of a wider pattern over time. The state argued that this possible pattern increased the level of risk and supported the need for continued detention. The state also stressed the seriousness of the allegations. It argued that the nature of the claims, especially those involving minors, made the situation more serious and more sensitive. Because of this, the state believed the safest option was to keep the accused in custody until trial. The defense strongly disagreed with this position. It argued that the allegations were not supported by strong or reliable evidence. The defense said the claims should not be treated as proven facts and insisted that the accused must still be considered innocent under the law. To support its position, the defense presented a large number of written character references. These letters described the accused as a longtime professional with a good reputation. The defense used these letters to show that many people who know the accused do not believe the allegations reflect his true character. The defense also submitted results from a polygraph examination. In addition, it presented a psychological risk assessment. These materials were used to support the claim that the accused does not present a danger to the public. The defense argued that these findings support release under supervision rather than detention. After reviewing both sides, the court accepted that the information provided was reliable enough to be considered for this stage of the process. The judge carefully examined all documents and statements before making further findings. The court then focused on the question of risk. It acknowledged that the allegations were very serious in nature. In particular, the claims involved minors, which required careful attention and caution. Because of this, the court agreed that the state had raised valid concerns about possible danger. However, the court did not stop at that point. It continued to examine whether those concerns required continued detention or whether strict release conditions could manage any possible risk. This marked the end of the first stage of the court's analysis and led into a deeper review of the accused's background and history. After the court decided that the accused could be released under strict conditions, what factors did it then examine? Let's find out. Background assessment and final release conditions. In the second stage of its decision, the court carefully reviewed the background and personal history of the accused. The judge first noted that there was no criminal record. There were no prior convictions for any criminal offense, either minor or serious. This was considered an important factor in the overall assessment. The state referred to older allegations from past years. These claims were presented as part of an argument suggesting a possible pattern of behavior. However, the court noted that these earlier claims had not been fully tested in court. Some were settled outside the legal system, while others were never prosecuted or formally proven. Because of this, the court gave them limited weight. The judge also considered whether there was evidence that the accused had misused a position of authority or trust. After reviewing supporting materials from individuals connected to the relevant environment, the court did not find strong confirmation of this claim at this stage. The court then examined whether there was evidence of repeated behavior involving similar situations, especially involving minors. It concluded that there was not enough clear evidence to establish a consistent pattern of such conduct. This finding was important in evaluating whether future risk was likely. The court also reviewed compliance history. It found no record of the accused failing to follow court orders or legal instructions in the past. Instead, it was noted that the accused voluntarily surrendered to authorities and cooperated with the legal process. The court viewed this as a positive sign of compliance. After reviewing all factors together, the judge concluded that the state had not proven strongly enough that no release conditions could reasonably protect public safety. Because of this, the court decided that release was appropriate, but only under strict conditions. The release conditions were designed to control risk and ensure safety while the case continues. The accused was ordered to report to pretrial supervision services and remain under active monitoring. Regular check-ins with supervising officers were required. The accused must attend all future court hearings without fail. Any failure to appear could result in serious legal consequences, including possible return to custody. The court also imposed strict restrictions on contact. The accused is not allowed to have any contact with alleged victims or their families. The accused is also not allowed to communicate with witnesses involved in the case. This includes direct and indirect communication. Additional conditions include a complete ban on illegal substances and alcohol. The accused is also prohibited from possessing any firearms or dangerous weapons. These restrictions are meant to reduce any possible risk while the case is ongoing. The court further required the accused to keep the court informed of any change in address. This ensures that the accused can be reached at all times during the legal process. The accused must also maintain regular contact with legal counsel to ensure proper handling of the case. In the end, the court made clear that the case is still active and has not been decided. The accused is allowed to remain in the community under strict supervision while the legal process continues toward trial. The court's decision placed significant attention on the public support expressed by Melissa Gilbert for the accused. Her statements were presented as part of the broader context surrounding the release decision, reflecting strong personal confidence in his character and denial of wrongdoing. While emotionally impactful, her position did not override the legal standard required for continued detention. The court still based its ruling on whether the state met the burden of proof regarding danger and release conditions. Ultimately, despite her visible support and public statements, the accused was released under strict supervision while the case proceeded to trial. What do you think about Melissa Gilbert's husband's scandal? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you for staying with us as we followed this deeply emotional court case and the intense legal battle surrounding it. If this look into the accusations, courtroom drama, and the role of public support kept you engaged, don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the next video on your screen to continue exploring more real-life stories. See you there.